Here they're advertising a belly buster. It looks like there are many bellies in England that could not be busted. Whenever I hear drums like this, I always think of Bob Blair. Kinds of bakery goods. The puffy stuff. Cheese. A posh pork pie is actually a dish, and here are several versions of it. More sweets. Dutch pancakes. Interesting. All mushrooms and potatoes. That looks very good. Looks like this whole area, there may be Granger Market area, is all pedestrian. At least it's pedestrianized down to that point, kinda. It repeats these two panels, and I'm not sure what they're depicting. It looks like apartment building cross-section. It also looks like architectural details of construction. That looks like a locking mechanism. Right. This is probably Eldon Square. That's the mall there. This is probably the square. As anything British, it's neatly done. And modern buildings about it, still in good British taste. Certainly it depicts St. George and the dragon. And the two dragons. Well, the one dragon, Germany. Looking again at this building, but focusing down here on the front panel. That must have been some kind of like a ticket booth or something once upon a time. Beautiful marble and metalwork. Gray Street extended a bit farther up, or whatever this street is, it's an extension of it. Also pedestrianized, but heavily shopped on this Saturday morning. All the kind of things you wish you could get as a kid. Here another kind of funky statuary. Noble's Amusements. I'm just roaming about, which is what I often do, just to see if I can find anything interesting. It's interesting to me that oftentimes the old in cities like you find in England are embedded in, they're completely remodeled. It's an art gallery that tower sits on. And you can see that they've taken what was an old building, and maybe several different buildings, and converted them into this art gallery and making the front part modern, incorporating that tower. This is just the remains of an entry sign over a now completely boarded up entry. Looks like it might have been a club or some kind of business like that. I think this building that I walked right by is the city library. I can't tell if that's all glass or if it's a metal, and it's reflecting so well. I know the man I first met walking along Quayside en route to the hostel yesterday indicated he was walking into town each day, as he does, to have a pint and go to the library. And just down from Gray Monument, what I'm guessing is the theater. Just an interesting pan of interesting old buildings restored. Neat little places tucked away when you know where to find them. Off to the west of the Monument Granger area. Again, just looking for stuff. Imagine what it would be like to climb around in the attics of those buildings. These offer such interesting old views. And these little shops and restaurants and pubs already with people having a pint on the Saturday morning. We hope that those are old and merely restored. The lower part, one open, one closed. It looks. There's nothing describing this, but it's obviously a remnant of something. And something that had an interior. Since we're not terribly far, a block or two away from the Sallyport Tower that we looked at, this may well be part of a wall that connected to that, protected the city. You can see that it would have allowed people to move through there, but it had a roof or upper story of some sort on it. Here, what looked like shooting port, narrow on this side, the interior would be wider. Eureka and Shazam, I have found an interpretive board. Weathered, but nevertheless here. This is a corner tower. And my guess is that that's the Sallyport we just looked at. We looked at it from right about this perspective, I think. This was built in 1298 when the town of Pandon was incorporated into Newcastle. And these are the last remains of the eastern side of that wall. It's noted that this wall coming from the north are made out of the fairly large stone, square stones, whereas in that direction they're not as large and, although they look square, not apparently as square. These stones maybe allude to the stairway of projecting stones that gave them access up onto the wall. These seem to be far too narrow for that. Here I am, Diane, looking my best at the train station on the security camera. That's as good as it gets. So here I am at Newcastle Central train station, and I'll wander about a bit because there are some pretty buildings to see. So I come from over here somewhere, take Pilgrim Street down, hit High Bridge, take it down to here, make a little jog to the right, then pick up Pudding Shar. Great names, aren't they? And that brings me down here, and then a little jog up here and across at the light, and I'm into the station. Here next to the metro station across the street from the railroad station, a little bit of British whimsy. I have no idea what its significance is. And another fellow working his way down the street, as are we all. I don't know if this man's waiting for him or not. Here we're looking down up Granger Street, and there you can see the Earl statue, which is at that center, or that square. And here, the Church of St. John the Baptist, looking rather defensively tower-like. Thought seriously about a tattoo, because there are many people who have them, but could not decide on a design. That building, entitled the Assembly Rooms, is dated 1776. Wonder if it's true. In Britain, everything always seems to sound so very old. I'd swear I'd encountered this name in literature. The Black Swan. An interesting sculpture, and what looked like part of the old wall with a couple of towers thrown in. It's interesting because it frames, if you will, those residential buildings behind it, and preserves in its remaining natural state. Signage, we can see that we're getting closer and closer to Chinatown, where there actually is apparently an archway that, if I can see it, I'll video it. Don't know what this interesting building is, but it's a pretty dome complex.